Okay, great. So let's get started. We have a few people who've joined us. Do we want to just quickly do introductions since we have a smaller group right now, and we can make sure everybody's mics and other things are heard. So I'm Nimisha. I'm here at edX, and we have.
Hey, I'm Fanil here at edX. Ned.
Pierre from Idlib in Montreal.
Great. Pierre?
Yeah, Pierre from Idlib in Montreal. I'm sysadmin, DevOps, a jack of all trades.
Great.
I'm Braden from OpenCraft here too. Sorry, my webcam's not working right now.
Yep, Braden.
Hi, I'm David from University of Montreal. I work with Pierre right behind me. I'll turn it off.
Johnny from EduNext in Bogota, Colombia.
Hey, Joni. Great, and I think Omar's joining us. I just sent him the link, so he'll be there in a minute. And you have someone else here?
JM is over there.
JM's here too.
Hi, always watching.
Exactly. So, okay, great.
Hello, everyone.
Oh. Hey, can you introduce yourself? Stranger?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, John Baldwin, engineer at Assembler. Currently is see behind me at Lake Nebagamon, Wisconsin.
Oh, beautiful. Very nice. Great. And anyone else who joined that hasn't introduced themselves yet?
That's me, Omar. I'm a software engineer at Assembler. And currently behind me there's a white wall.
Okay. Great. Okay, great. Oh, anybody else? Okay. Would you like to introduce yourself? CPUY AO4H. I feel like I'm on an eye doctor appointment.
You don't have to.
You don't have to, but yeah.
It doesn't have my name.
Oh,
Joe.
hey, Joe.
From edX. I figured the room would be full, and I just wanted to kind of listen in.
Yeah, no, perfectly fine.
I had trouble finding the link to Zoom. I found it in the Open edX Slack. It wasn't in the meeting.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, no, thanks for joining. Everyone is welcome, and you're welcome to participate however you choose to, as either as a listener, as an active participant, and whatnot. We deliberately, actually, we don't have a set agenda planned for today, so, but we did want to definitely connect with the community. We haven't had an OpenX Architecture Hangout since our conference several weeks ago, so this is a great opportunity to just touch base again and see what's happening here at edX, as well as just what's happening with you guys, and have a conversation. So I want to just put out there, are there any dying questions that people have, or topics or conversations or things that people want to discuss? And we can choose whether we talk about it in depth in this conversation, or that we could have a follow-up one if there's preparation required. So.
I know lots of people on my team at OpenCraft are interested in hearing more about API stability and APIs in the platform. So that's something I'd be interested in hearing or talking about.
Okay.
Right, and Braden, I know that you tried on the last day of the conference to tell us about YASG, DRF, yet another Swagger generator.
Yeah.
We are currently experimenting with putting that into edX platform, so I'd be interested to hear your experiences with it.
Ooh, great. Yeah, let's talk about that then.
Great. Yep, Regis, go ahead.
We're done.
Oh, okay.
He has his hands raised.
Regis, are you on mute? We do see your hand raised. Okay.
He'll figure it. I will lower his hand.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we have APIs as something that people want to know about. Any other topics or questions?
I guess I'm curious on what the near-term plans are for the front-end micro frameworks.
Okay, that sounds great. So we can talk about that. Great. Pierre had shared some news in the beginning before everyone else joined. Pierre, did you want to just talk about what you guys accomplished over the weekend?
We've installed Ironwood on our production system this Sunday.
Yeah. Yay.
Congrats.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Anything you want to call out or share or read out on that with this group?
Well, I think that we discovered at the beginning the patch you introduced for the GWT in order for Studio to log into the LMS.
Yes, that
I had encountered. I also encountered the same issue with e-commerce needing a course discovery for the coupons to work.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I was told at one point that I could use any GWT, that it wasn't really looking at the content of the GWT. But since I had already created one when we were looking at the Studio NMS issue, so I reused that one, and then I was able to create coupons in my test environment. But it allowed me to install in production course discovery because it needs it in order to create and use the coupons. So that was the big problem I had in recent days, but fixed just in time for the production system.
Okay, that's great.
And we haven't heard any feedback or disappointment from any of our users or students in the last couple of days. So
yeah, that's because the feedback link is broken in Ironwood. No, I'm just.
Oh my goodness, Ned. Okay.
Thanks, Ned.
We do what we can.
Right, such a big improvement on issues.
Down on the support box.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, that's great. It's also good to hear, Pierre, that you guys are using the course discovery service in production and e-commerce and whatnot. I think not all of our open edX instances are, so you're able to successfully make that work.
Well, as you know, we're not really using course discovery for its catalog purposes because we are working with the guys from Fun on Richie.
I see, okay.
So I needed to use course discovery because we want to use coupons in e-commerce. So,
right.
So I had like no choice at all at this point, but it does work.
Yeah, okay. Interesting that you're using the course discovery service just for the existence of the service, but it sounds like you don't necessarily need to populate that data.
Well, I needed to populate the data because e-commerce would look at the index and other stuff, but you know, I don't really need to recreate the metadata or redo the index on a regular basis because we only add new courses once in a while. So at this point, I do it manually, but I haven't had to do it since Sunday, and we don't have any more courses opening in the next few weeks. So.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, so that's how you're moving forward. Okay.
But we do have a test environment that has been running with Ironwood for the last few weeks, even before the conference.
Right.
So we're going to do a little bit more tests to look at the different features, and we're going to introduce different features in some of our new courses that will come up by the end of the summer.
Okay, great. Okay, sounds good. So then in terms of conversations, we have APIs. I like to dive a little bit deeper on that because APIs itself are such a large topic. And we could talk about many different things there. So micro front ends, John asked for an update on that. And Fanil, you were mentioning. Is there interest in learning more about our efforts on Python 3 upgrade?
So,
Sorry? Yeah, Omar?
thanks. So let's see. We have a couple of deployments, not just one at AppSembler. So I'm just interested, like, in the short term, let's say from release Ironwood, maybe the one after, or the one like that, the second one after. What are the major changes that's gonna break my current mode of operations? Let's say I maintain 2 to 3 OpenEdX installations for mid to small customers. What do I expect? Like, will suddenly, so we know that the studio login have changed.
Right.
Will suddenly the LMS disappear and another LMS will appear? Yeah, it's like those changes. I hear them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Ned said that will also reduce support costs.
We make the element.
Okay, so it's just like any major news that we
Right.
should expect for sure, not
Yeah.
something that we speculate upon.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think there will be some things, like for instance, this studio login thing was not necessarily a big feature that we would have been able to warn you about many months before, because that was something that resulted in us saying, okay, we're going to focus on micro front ends and authentication and the future authentication. So that was sort of a side thing that resulted. But things that we do know about, for instance, are, yes, Python 3 upgrade. We're going to target that. So the next release is Juniper. The one after that is Koa. But Python 3, does have an end of life early next year. So we want to be able to target that Python 2 is what I meant. Python 2 has end of life. So we want to target that in early for the Juniper release as much as possible. Beyond that, we are looking at Block Store as our new storage mechanism for courseware, for course content. And what the implications of that will be in terms of migration from the old module store to Block Store, that is something that we will communicate out as that crystallizes. So that's another big effort. And what's another big effort? I think the other one is micro front ends. So as we're rewriting our features, some of the features that are legacy features, we're going to re-implement them using micro front ends. So there, and now also taking John Baldwin's question in mind here, we have gone through and we have re-implemented the profile page, the order history page, and account settings page. So those were our first 3 pages that we re-implemented using, in React as a separate micro front end. The ones that we're planning to do going forward, right, are the basket page, which is a e-commerce feature. So only for those OpenX instances that use e-commerce would be impacted there. But the basket page is the next one. After that, we're planning to do course homepage and the courseware content page. So basically the section and unit pages in courseware. And those are the big major ones. Those are the ones that are most used by our users and we think will be most impactful with this change. After that, in terms of instructor facing and course author facing pages, we may take a different approach and not just rewrite to feature parity as we've been doing so far. There we may actually look at, okay, what's our future vision for authoring and instructor, managing courses. And so we are thinking of perhaps rewriting them, but with newer things in mind in terms of features and layout and consolidating pages if needed and things like that, rearranging features and so forth. So and that is a larger effort, and that one will is something that we would do only probably after the fall. So, but anyway, so those are the 3 things that come to mind just in terms of Python 3, micro front ends, and the storage as big things that the community will need to move forward with as we move forward. The OAuth that is in progress right now having to do with introducing a routing layer. So that one will be going out for review just in a few days. We started having some internal conversations on it, but it's just, we're trying to make it ready for a wider review. So that could possibly have implications on how you choose to also deploy your OpenEdX instances. But trying to keep we have Open edX definitely in mind with that project, and trying to come up with a solution, and so that works for deployments of micro frontends and microservices for both the community as well as ourselves.
So your description of the micro frontends, is it fair to characterize it like this? The current micro frontends that are being built as a way to prove out the technology of micro frontends. And so it's a simple reimplementation of existing pages. Once those are done, the technology will be considered sort of mature and ready for actual use. And then that actual use is more likely to be adding features to existing pages along the way. Is that why it's coming out that way?
So the reason why it's coming out this way, where these initial micro frontends are really only meeting feature parity, is because these are pages that we believe are adding business value today, and they are core to the learning experience. And core meaning, core is, you can define it different ways, but like, course home and courseware unit and subsection pages, like those are core and critical to our LMS. The basket page, we do still needs people to be able to purchase courses. So like those things, we don't expect for them to go away, or, they're not, but they're not just extensions, they're actually core. Beyond that, there might be things like, for instance, the notes application, or how we choose to display the dates in the course, or announcements and things like that. Now, these are things that, or even bookmarks. There is a lot of technology and a lot of great innovation that's coming through the community as well as in the industry, that we may actually choose to think, hey, maybe we should consider integrating instead, or or if we do choose to build instead of integrate, how to reconsider it. Discussion forums also is in that category. There's a lot of pages, a lot of features around it, but it gives us an opportunity to just really finally considering what do we want to do with that feature. So that's where that pivot is, and I think then from that perspective, right, the team that builds out those pages, they're not just thinking feature parity and the technology behind it, they're now starting to really think and function more like a product delivery team, measure the impact and value of the changes that they're making, and it's really working with our UX team in understanding those features as well.
Cool. So that brings, like, one of the things I do want to talk about are APIs, especially because both OpenCraft and AppSembler are doing API work. We're focusing on customer needs right now, and on our Tahoe with Hawthorne. But just not that I want to do a deep dive into the front end, but one of the things I think about is a challenge that I'm going to be facing with Figures is, how do I customize one of the micro front ends? If we just imagine Figures as a micro front end, and we want to add in, say, custom metrics cards, other micro front ends, people in the community may want to customize parts of that, and again, not to put the time into it, maybe have this as a future conversation of, what are ideas that we have, or what are plans for being able to customize a micro front end, or extend it.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great conversation. And then that's also, like, yes, in the scope of APIs as well. And so as we're doing rewriting these micro front ends and with feature parity in mind, right, it allows us to really think about the technology behind it. And what we are doing is we're taking different things one at a time, essentially, or a few at a time, essentially, but not as opposed to everything at a time. So what I mean to say is the word we use here is runways, right? So like technology that supports our micro front ends. So we've made sure that internationalization is something that we have support for in our micro front ends, and we're using React International as a library for it, but we needed to implement some additional support around it. Analytics is another one that we've made sure that we have some support for. Observability and error logging, for instance. These are all things that we thought were high priority, making sure that before these are enabled, or as we're iterating through them, like V1, V2 of these micro frontends, they have these things addressed. Now, in terms of customization and theming of micro frontends, that's also on our roadmap.
Okay.
And deployment for OpenEdX is also on our roadmap. It's just that we haven't so to give you context on why we didn't do those earlier, we're waiting for there is an enterprise team at edX that is integrating and experimenting and assessing different tools like Gatsby, like Netlify, and other things there. So we're sort of waiting to hear and understand the output of their investigations and seeing how that works or doesn't work for them. And then based on that, you know, it will give us a chance to evaluate if that's the right thing for OpenEdX and for us to support theming and whatnot. So, but to answer your question in terms of customization, we talked about this at the Dev Summit at the conference, right? Where, you know, David Joy also, you know, helped us have that conversation, and we were categorizing it into, well, there's branding, right, of micro front ends. And so that we have from the outset, because we are built on edX Bootstrap, and we have a group here that has really focused on getting Paragon, which is our reusable component library, up to speed and up to a level that allows us to, you know, to make changes more rapidly, but also we're sort of happier with our UX team in terms of like what the styling is and stuff like that. But so we want to make sure that micro frontends that we're implementing have that abstraction layer in place, so that if there's any customization that you need from the styling perspective, you can do that with implementing your own Bootstrap theme. So, and that is definitely something that our enterprise theme will also be, our team will also be using for that sort of customization. And then beyond that, in terms of like, if you have a page that you want to insert your own components in, and things like that, that's definitely also a requirement of our enterprise team. So we have a header and a footer that we may share across our pages. But for a particular white label site, they might have their own header and footer. So being able to substitute that also is something that we need to support. And then if they have their own, let's say, announcements or some other component that they want to add to all of that white label site's pages, you know, those are things that they can do by inserting their own React component or any component on the page, or surrounding the React component that is the main component of the page, right? Yep. So yeah, and so those are things that, I mean, there's actually an advantage of us actually working very closely with our enterprise team, because we have that tighter feedback loop and making sure that what we are implementing supports what their needs are. So that's something that's happening. And then the theming, the wider theming, and what we're going to be doing for that is going to build upon these early learnings that we're finding. And that to that extent, like, we do hope that React itself and how it really, you know, has us think about componentization and breaking up pages, you know, in components, is in itself going to help us, you know, have these abstractions in place. So.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I know that we really don't have the time to dig into, you know, micro front end extensibility and building and deployment strategies at this point. I think that would be a really awesome kind of special purpose meeting.
Yeah.
To start to understand, you know, what is the enterprise thinking, because that's the thing of thinking about, you know, how do we extend it? You know, do we plug code, you know, in that, then we, you know, build the assets, or are we injecting code in and such things, those strategies, which I know that we really don't have time to address now.
Yep. And the other thing that I want to say is that, and if we want to dive in deeper, we can, you know, I can ask David to lead a conversation specifically on the front end aspect and give everyone an update on that too. But I was going to say is that when we do the course home and courseware pages, the conversation and the exercise that we did on the Dev Summit day, the last day of the conference, where we talked about front-end pluggability, that is definitely an inspiration for how we then consider implementing course home and courseware pages, right? Because allowing us to plug in different tools, whether it's on the side of the page or whatever, like it allows you to enhance the learner experience without modifying the core, right? And so that is still top of mind for us when we're looking to how to make those pages extensible. And those are examples of pages where there's a lot of value in putting that pluggability or extensibility in place. So it's going to help, us move forward quickly too, as our teams here try to experiment with different features, but also for the community, if you guys have different features or different experiments or whatever you want to run as, bells and whistles on different pages, right? You can do that more easily. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to learning more and talking about it.
Yeah.
I guess one other thing is going on with interested in, and I guess at this point, unless people have, I'd like to talk about APIs. Okay,
yeah, let's talk about APIs, and let's do that. I also want to just I want to start by saying that we have put a team together here at edX to focus on edX platform, the repo essentially, and the monolith. And so we're calling it the BOMB squad, which stands for Ball of Mud squad. And so Fanil is here, and Ned is here, and Dave's also helping us with this effort. And so these are people that you guys can definitely reach out to if you have any questions or thoughts or whatever. But essentially the trifecta approach towards addressing the BOMB, addressing our monolith is, and what we're focusing on for the next few days, right, is, the next, few weeks, I suppose now at this point, but hopefully months, but is, to figure out what is core to the platform, to edX platform, and what isn't, right? And so that will then allow us to stop influx of things that shouldn't belong there, and also remove things that shouldn't belong there. And then so that's 1, 2, and the second thing is to create an API, around the monolith so that people have a standard interface, a reliable interface that they can use for extending and using the platform. And also, as part of this ownership of edX platform, this team is also, on the page to do the Python 3 upgrade. So, so that effort is also underway. And so, Fanil, if you want to just say maybe a few minutes on what we're doing there, and then we can go back to APIs.
Yeah, and I'd say
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, overseeing the upgrade. Yes.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, you have. You're on there.
All right, I'll just talk over here. So the biggest thing that that we started doing is we asked the question, how much work is there? Which turns out to be fairly difficult to answer, and sort of what is the value of different amount of work. So which repos need to be converted, why, which repo should just get deleted, things like that. So we've been leading an effort to sort of understand essentially the inventory of all of the Python code that is both a part of OpenEdX and that edX, the company, is sort of on the hook for. Going forward, what we're doing is we're working with teams internally that will be doing a lion's share of the work for the platform and for the parts of the system that are sort of considered core, and coordinating more globally across edX and all of the various services and the service owners for the work that needs to be done across there. So a lot of it, as Ned said, is letting people know that they're not done and making sure they know they need to be done by certain dates and times, and getting that on people's radars and on their schedules. There is a class of work that we are actually pretty well suited for, which is the work of this shouldn't exist anymore, which is hard for a lot of teams to do without context. Between myself, Namisha, Ned, and Dave, we've been at edX for a little while, and so we can tell when things are old and busted and just need to stop existing. So that sort of work we're going to be doing more of. To that end, we had a recent review of all of the forks and things that are maintained on the edX platform, and we are going to be deleting about 25% of the Python code underneath the edX organization as stuff that we definitely don't need and is just confusing. There's going to be a second round of archival, and there will probably be things that potentially will get removed from the OpenEdX release, though that last part is still sort of in conversations.
Just to be clear, the 25% that Anil's talking about being deleted is code that literally isn't actually being used by anything. So it's not that we're going to take stuff away or we're going to break stuff. We've just identified code that is absolutely literally dead, and we don't carry it around on GitHub.
Like the
Woohoo.
sandbox.
Yay.
Yeah.
Are those mostly separate repositories, you mean?
Yes, right now, yeah.
Right. What we're talking about, the 25% are forks of third-party libraries that we thought we needed to modify, or at one point we did need to modify, but we no longer do. So we don't have to carry that anymore.
And there's like a second round after that of things that we are still talking to but don't need to, and need to stop being on our fork because the upstream has it, and we just need to upgrade to the upstream, and then we'll be able to delete even more.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, so hopefully, I'm hoping that there is work that we can ask you guys to do. There are lots of sort of small libraries that are part of the edX platform that need conversion, and we'll have people here obviously doing a bunch of it, but we're hoping to sort of have some of that work be supported by the community as a part of Inker. And we will, as we have more information on that, we'll definitely be reaching out to sort of you guys as core supporters already.
Well, we did hear last week, the edX engineering team invested in the Python 3 initiative, right? We had a review-a-thon where we divvied up different tasks. Some people reviewed forks, some people reviewed repos, some people reviewed PRs. And we did have pies, 3. So we did have 3 pies to feed everyone. Now, I think if we want to do like a review-a-thon type of thing with the community, might not be able to give everyone pies, but
Mail pie.
I don't know, we could come up with something, but like, I don't know, there's definitely...
make sure there's pies at the next conference. Sure.
But I was going to say, is like, you guys could have your own teams get together possibly, or I don't know, but we could do an online review-a-thon. I would say that in addition to the pies, which, some people ate, some people didn't, I think it was just more of us all working together towards a common cause and putting us together that was also very rewarding in itself. That, I mean, of course, it's difficult with everyone in different time zones, but we could try to find maybe a time early in the day, if that works for most people, and help us, move this initiative forward. So, I mean, Fanil's taken a lead in trying to be strategic about how to go about things and definitely not upgrade things that we don't need and all that stuff. So that's been a great effort. But now I think there's also a lot of just churning through and making that happen. So, so anyway, I think...
So if you guys have any time, there's already stuff on the Inker project that people can pick up that is sort of clear and actionable. I know many people have, but it just takes a little while to sort of get those things generated and ready for review, and sort of doing initial reviews so that we can move through them faster. All of that is super helpful. And I'm hoping that we will have sort of more, as Nivisha suggested, coordination and support as for more like how people can help with this, since we all kind of need it.
Yep. And the JM, did you want to share the article that you, or the news? Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're at 36. We're at 36.
We are one of the top 40.
Top 100, but yeah, top 40.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're one of the top 40
America's top.
GitHub repos out of the world of like millions. In terms of like, I think they evaluated us through like blockchain technology.
So it's
Oh,
oh yeah, well it's on the blockchain. It must be great.
wow.
So there's a company that does some sentiment analysis. They're trying to sell their sentiment analysis tool. So what better way to do that than evaluate projects hosted on GitHub to rank them? And honestly, I don't know I don't know if I buy their methodology, but whatever.
I buy it.
Since it works in our favor, I am a true believer. So this, what was it? Complementum? Anyway, I posted on the Slack channel.
I think we retweeted them too.
Yeah. So we're number 36. I think just behind. Anyway, we're up there with some pretty well-known projects, and it's good. It's good advertisement for us.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely they highlighted us as one of the key education open source technologies out there. And so, yeah, I mean, I think us cooperatively working on keeping it, updated and maintained and stuff is definitely a great value.
Golang.
Wow.
Two below
I think
Golang.
we're above Python. I forget where it ended up.
So anyway, yeah, take a look at that page. Dan shared it. So now just transitioning to APIs. Actually, yeah, let me share my screen. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, I'm just gonna take some notes on APIs as we talk about it. So do you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So Braden, can you just say, you mentioned two things earlier on, like what are things that you were looking at or things that you want to know about in terms of APIs?
The things we want to know about are how can we discover APIs?
Mm-hmm.
And then API stability. How do we know which APIs will be stable across edX named releases, basically?
Right.
And that includes more than just REST APIs if we're making Xblocks or other plugins.
Right. One thing that I will mention is that, in terms of APIs, there is a OAuth or an ADR that we created for Python APIs. It's still to be publicized, but we did just take a stab at writing this. So inter-app APIs, yeah. So
I didn't know about this at all. Cool.
I know.
It's
So
very new.
it's very new, and it still needs to be fleshed out. This is still sort of first iteration, I will say, but it does take a stab at talking about Python APIs and what people should do for each of their Django apps. I put this in NX platform because we are owning NX platform, but if this is working, and especially for the monolith, then we can extend to other repos, but specifically for NX platform, since it has so many Django apps and whatnot, it does take a stab at saying that everyone should have an API.py for Python APIs and a REST API. Well, actually, this one doesn't say it yet, but REST underscore API for REST APIs.
That's what happens in the discussion, right?
Yeah, right. And so the other ADR that I'm planning to create soon is, we're planning to create soon, is about the directory structure for our Django apps. And there we'll go into more of like where we think REST API should belong and Python APIs and whatnot. So, but anyway, that's more about structural and the fact that we should have these APIs. Mm-hmm. But then beyond that, there's more effort to be done. So those two are more of the immediate things that are going to happen.
Great. Well, that inter-app APIs is exactly what the sort of thing that I wanted to see, and that's really exciting. And I have a PR open right now that is work in progress where I'm going to create an API.py file and try that out right away.
Okay.
By the way, do you have any opinions on should the Python API.py and the REST API and views.py be the same shape? Should the views, the REST API just call the Python APIs and mirror it?
I don't think we should prescribe that just yet, just because we don't have enough information to know like one way or another where things are going to end up. So I think for now, do what feels right, and once we have some data points, we can extend that more closely.
And the data representation requirements of REST and Python are very different. So it's not clear, it's not obvious to me at least that they should be the same. Although I can see the advantages of having that uniformity, just to reduce the cognitive burden. But it would be unfortunate if either the REST or the Python suffered because of that as a requirement.
Yeah, of course.
I think where it makes sense, definitely do it because it will make things easier for humans. But don't feel like you have to do it to make your don't make your life harder to do it. Like both APIs should serve the
More
purposes that
importantly,
they
don't
serve.
make my life
And don't make Ned's life harder just to do it.
Yeah, and I think one approach that Dave was trying to do, maybe with the Blockster effort, was to try to write the REST APIs and the Views.py only based on the Python APIs in that app. And I think the advantage to that is just that then you are adding, it allows you to have more of a layered approach to your code base. So, you know, you have your own more granular functionality, but then you expose a Python API for others to use, and then but then the REST API can just live on top of it and build on top of it. So there is an advantage for REST APIs to just use your API.py. It then allows a REST API to go wherever it chooses. It doesn't have to be also in that, you know, in that locale. But I think there's, in terms of examples, and so Omar, I saw you raise your hand, so we'll get to you, but like the ADR does reference Grades app, because as part of writing that ADR, the PR, I had a PR that refactored Grades to use this model. Grades itself does have these abstractions layers about course grades and subsection grades and whatever, but still having a Python API module that exposes and being explicit about what it is surfacing there's still an advantage to that. One thing that I'll call out is that in terms of models, there's two different schools of thoughts right now going on at edX, just in terms of should we allow apps to access each other's models. And Django, because of its principles and whatnot, and its thinks about fat models, it does prefer people just reaching out to other models. However, over time, and when you're thinking about a really large code base, there too, it's actually preferable to figure out and identify which parts of your models are actually part of an interface. But the reason there are two different thoughts also is just because of performance reasons, right? You might want to actually reach into other models to be able to join tables and create unions and so forth. So there might be certain exceptions for performance reasons. The way that we did this for Grades is there is a separate models API that we created so as a parallel to the models, where we expose which things from the models we think are needed for others to use, so that we still don't want people to reach into Grades models directly. We prefer that they use persistent course grades and wherever the higher order interfaces. But there might still be some things for performance reasons, like they want to prefetch data and whatnot, that we've exposed through a models API. So, but that's only really for performance reasons and like grade reports, and there might be other performance related features that need that. So I think whether or not we use that as a common way throughout our apps is still unclear to me. But one thing that I was going to say is on the ADR that's coming out, you know, we are talk about API.py and REST API being a separate folder for REST APIs. So that was that. The other thing that we did, yeah, and let me leave it as that. Block structure is another example. I was just going to say as a Django app that tries to create higher order APIs that others use, and so it also has a Python API. But these are all, in my mind, preferable than trying to just have other apps reach into your models or other abstractions that aren't really clearly delineated as abstractions. So, yeah.
This is great. Thanks, guys. I'm excited to see this.
Great. Omar, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks. So I would like to add to this API whatever list. I would like to know about multi-tenancy, if this is something that will be, so in addition to discovery and stability and support, multi-tenancy is the topic that we care about at AppSambler, especially that we host currently 30 plus customers in a single installation, so to speak. So that's one concern for us. We regularly find stuff and fix it, sometimes build a new API because the current API doesn't really support multi-tenancy. And we don't want to fight that specific API to just like support it, so we create a different one. So I just wanted to know what if this is a topic that you also share with the community, or this is something that you expect us to carry on independently, and that's okay.
You're asking whether we value multi-tenancy enough to support it in APIs?
Is this a problem that affects your daily operation, whether it's for the edX team or the enterprise or whatnot? I know that it's supported, but it's not within the same par as the single tenancy mode of operation.
I think we are probably going to move towards some future where the APIs will become stronger at being able to handle multi-tenancy. But those conversations kind of tend to go back and forth in terms of is this worth the effort to make it multi-tenant, is this not? And I'm not confident enough to give you an answer that we definitely have picked a side on that. That said, we are building more new micro front ends for sort of microsite style things. So there is the need is going to be present enough for us that we will care about it as well. A thing that I think would be helpful for us is to know sort of, I don't know if is there a place where we've already written down sort of what the what are the things that are most broken about multi-tenancy today?
So Omar, what we did at the OpenEdX conference we had two conversations, one on the Dev Summit with a larger group, but we also had a theming working group that had started to talk about what are the needs for different different companies that have multi-tenancy needs, or supporting multiple OpenEdX instances and whatnot. From AppSembler, actually I think John Baldwin had joined us from AppSembler on that day, but there's a readout where we did capture a bunch of notes of different people's requirements there, and we can share that with you. But anyway, so that's what we're going after right now, just in terms of supporting different theming needs. And the way that we're approaching it is like Camille mentioned, in terms of micro front ends, we're trying to make sure that those support different white label needs.
Right.
But
the approach there in particular is often of the making new micro front end for a new visually different thing.
Yes.
Is the direction we're moving in.
Yeah.
And for the APIs, I think supporting multi-tenancy is a thing that is a direction that we're moving.
Yeah, I'd like to understand what that means exactly. Because I think the way that I had been conceptually thinking is that there's front ends and we need to configure them for different, tenants. So, and there's a visual component, right? But then there's also configurations that are going to be different, like which fields on the registration form do you present or don't present and whatever. But those are front end configurations that we were going to provide to those micro front ends. And then in the back end, we were going to be doing things based on site configuration for now, because that's our tool of use for providing site-specific configuration. And so for the backend and APIs, if you need to configure the APIs or the backend in any way, then you would use site configuration for that. As of now, I'm not aware of any other shift from how we do backend configuration right now. But is that what you mean by APIs? Is it the site configuration and the micro front-end configuration? Is that sufficient, or are you looking for more when it comes to multi-tenancy APIs?
If I can jump in really quickly, if there's a Python API and it doesn't have a Django request parameter, does it still know what site is the context of the, what multi-tenant site is active?
Interesting. Okay.
Well, in some places we get the request from the stack rather than passing it explicitly, but I don't know how prevalent that is.
There's a middleware thing that puts it in temporarily during each request or something. Yeah. The other issue I heard at the conference was about like email notifications and asynchronous tasks and stuff, and how do they put the right branding in when they send out emails to users or do asynchronous processing.
Right.
That's come up recently in Slack.
Okay, so branding for email notifications and stuff. And Omar knows most about that, right? In terms of you're helping us rewrite things to ACE, and I thought the work that you're doing does make sure that those are site aware.
So yeah, most of them, yeah, supposedly all of them are site aware. We just recently used the password reset. It mostly worked,
Right.
except for the logo because it was hard coded.
I see, but you fixed that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess so.
Okay, great. So yeah, so I think hopefully, I don't know what the Slack thread is, but like we do hope that ACE features and it uses Django templates and stuff like that. So those can be site aware, and if they're not, then we should upstream fixes to that. In terms of Django and Python code needing to be site aware, one thing is that like our waffle implementation needs to be site aware itself, and if we can make that happen, and I think it was Felipe who was thinking of upstreaming some work on that. I don't think he started that effort, but that itself will help, because right now our Django and Python code, and we're asking people to use waffle flags for determining one path or another, and so at least in terms of what things are enabled and what aren't enabled, that if we can make waffle be site aware, that will help. But then I think, like I said, the other thing is to use site configuration right now. If it is kind of intrusive, I will say, right, in our code base. Like we have to make sure that any code that needs to be site aware, it needs to go and get data and configuration settings from site config. If there's any other great ideas or innovative ways of helping our code base be more site aware without things being very intrusive, then let me know. But yeah, John?
I need to run in just a couple of minutes. I have another meeting at noon. But this is an issue that I've had to address with Figures, and I need to make the testing more robust. But Figures needs to support both standalone customers where everybody is on one site, but also isolate data so that data are only retrieved through the API queries for data for that particular site. Like only the course enrollments for this site are retrieved, or only the courses that belong to another site, or only the course access roles, for example.
Okay, so yeah, so you're talking about now, like in terms of if you have data that is, for different sites,
Yeah.
right? How can we have data compartmentalization?
Right, not just data compartmentalization, but also we've been have that for multi-tenancy for doing registrations, and upcoming we need to do a course enrollment API to meet specific customer needs that is also site aware, so that it will only impact basically the models that are for that specific site. And unfortunately, I do need to run right now, but I would really love for us to, for whoever's interested, have a follow-on conversation on general API architecture, as you're pointing out, like the Python API and then the REST API on top, plus multi-tenancy.
Yeah.
And if we could get EduNext, I'm happy to reach out to them, and also, because bringing them in the conversation, I think, is really important too.
Yeah.
Johnny's here right now from EduNext.
Oh, awesome. Sorry. My apologies.
He's an API guy from EduNext.
Hey, Johnny.
Hi, John. Sure, we can. I don't know if you want to discuss further about this. I'll be there in Slack. For sure, we're interested on the support for multi-tenancy in API. So reach me wherever you want.
Okay, will do, sir.
Okay,
and
so
I'm sorry, I do need to run now. I thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks, John. Okay, great. So we do also only have 2 more minutes left. I agree with John that I think we need more follow-up on the multi-tenancy thing. I think EduNext being part of that conversation will be helpful, as well as OpenCraft. But I think it would also be great to have someone from the edX enterprise team here. So I'll need to find out who would be a good candidate, because I think they are the ones who are sort of driving how to make this work for edX platform and I mean our code base. So it would be great if they're in sync with where you guys have experienced yourselves, and if you guys have any thoughts on that. So anyway, so let's, I'll take that. I or someone here will take an action item on making that happen. And then in terms of APIs and stuff, there is a lot more to talk about and do, actually. I think really want to start doing things here. And so Ned said he would follow up or touch base with Braden, right, and talking more about the
Swagger generator.
The Swagger generator. So quick update on that, Ned. What have you done so far on that?
So there's a pull request now that upgrades DRF far enough to get YASG installed. It doesn't currently generate Swagger docs because we've got some conflict between two different models. I was planning to look into that this afternoon. Braden, I don't know if you'd actually used that package in edX platform, or if you were using it in some smaller, more handleable.
Yeah, we haven't used it in OpenEdX. We've used it in a smaller new project where we just started with the new version of DRF and all that stuff.
Right, exactly. Okay.
But I'm happy to help out.
This is going to be worth it, right? You like it?
Yeah, I really like it. I've been super happy with the approach.
Good.
Yeah, so we do have a edX Masters team that also tried it, but they weren't happy with it. So yeah, so we need to get all of our minds together and understand what their experience was.
Okay.
Okay, great. So that's going to be another follow-up. Okay, and I think both of those, especially the APIs one, hopefully that happens before our next monthly, because I think we want to move forward on that sooner than later. So, and then for the multi-tenants, like I said, we'll try to find the right person here in-house and see if we can drive that forward. So
I am taking a long vacation for 3 weeks starting on Friday. So if you want my input, get it in the next few days. I've got to run to another call now. Thanks so much, everyone.
Okay, yep. Thank you all very much. Take care. Let's continue conversations in Slack. Okay, see you. Bye.
Bye.